The central, quiet crisis of later life is that the very drive that propelled you through 40 years of achievement doesn't just disappear when you retire, it slowly uncouples from reality, leaving you with a high-performance engine running in neutral.
You know, if that quote hits home, if you can feel that engine humming but it's got nowhere to go, well, you're in exactly the right place. That feeling, let's call it the ghost in the engine, it's not a sign that something's wrong with you, not at all. It's actually a really common structural thing that happens when our sense of purpose, which was so neatly tied to our job, suddenly gets cut loose. So, in this explainer, we're not just going to talk about why this happens. We're going to walk through a clear, step-by-step plan to help you re-engage that engine and really chart a course for an incredible next chapter.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll unpack this crisis we're calling purpose drift. Then we'll dig into the diagnosis, the real why behind it. After that, we'll get to the solution, a protocol to build your new anchor, followed by a blueprint with your first concrete steps. And we'll wrap up by looking at how this is all part of a bigger transformation into a brand new role for you. Okay, let's dive right into section 1, the crisis or purpose drift. So what is that exactly? Well, it's that subtle kind of creeping feeling that your internal compass is just spinning, There's no true north. The first thing we need to do is really get a handle on this drift. The big goal here is to re-anchor your internal why, that deep down motivation that's always been there, to a new meaningful what for this new chapter of your life. And this is absolutely crucial, so I really want you to hear this. This is not a personal failing. So many people feel like they've just lost their spark or something, but that's not what's happening. The reality is, well, it's much simpler. For decades, your identity was like a boat tied firmly to a dock. That dock was your job, your role, your daily grind. And when that dock is suddenly gone, of course the boat starts to drift. The problem isn't the boat, the problem isn't you. It's just the lack of a new place to moor. All right, section 2, the diagnosis. So if we're going to find a new anchor, we first have to understand the invisible currents that are causing the drift in the first place, right? It's not enough to just know you're drifting. You've got to know why. So we're going to put a name to these psychological forces. We're going to make them visible so we can see them, understand them, and then finally start to do something about them. The first big idea here is something called instrumental identity collapse. Sounds complicated, but it's not. For decades, your purpose was instrumental. It was a tool to get something done, right? A paycheck, a promotion, a successful project. Your whole sense of self was held up by what we can call social scaffolding. Just think about it. You had meetings, deadlines, team projects, performance reviews, all that stuff propped up your sense of purpose. And when that scaffolding gets kicked out from under you, well, that identity can feel pretty shaky, like it's starting to crumble. And that collapse leads right into this next state, purpose inertia. What's so wild about this is that the engine is still running. That drive for meaning, for getting stuff done, it's still there, but it has no container, no direction. It's like the engine is revving, but the transmission isn't connected to the wheels. And here's the danger. This is often mistaken for just needing a rest, but it's not. If you leave that powerful engine in neutral for too long, the drive itself can start to fade. And that's a process called meaning atrophy. So what's the real psychological work we have to do here? It's something called ego differentiation. Basically, it's the crucial job of separating who you are from what you did, untangling your self-worth from your old job title. Because if we don't do this work, we risk getting stuck in what's called a past tense identity. Always looking in the rearview mirror, saying, I was a director, or I used to manage a team. And that just feeds this damaging idea that our time to contribute is over, when really, it's just changed. And this brings us to a really fundamental shift. For most of your career, you were running on what we might call a pushed purpose, right? Deadlines, bosses, quarterly goals, they all pushed you forward. And honestly, it was kind of the path of least resistance because the structure was all laid out for you. But now you have to switch to a pulled purpose. This is a purpose that you pull from deep inside yourself, from your own values. It takes self-direction. It takes real intention. And let's be honest, that can feel exhausting at first because you've gone from just being the engine to having to be the navigator too. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we know what's going on. Now for the good part, the solution. And this isn't about just, wandering around hoping inspiration strikes. No way. This is about a structured, proven method to rebuild that sense of meaning from the inside out. We call it the Legacy Design Protocol, or LDP for short. The Legacy Design Protocol, or LDP. It's built on 3 main pillars. First up is the intrinsic audit. That's all about figuring out what really makes you tick. Second is micro-mission batching, a super practical way to get that engine back in gear.
And third is the generativity map, which helps you point all that energy and wisdom in the right direction. So let's break each one of these down.
All right, pillar number 1, the intrinsic audit. The whole point of this is to discover what we call your portable purpose. Think about it like this. What are the essential parts of you, the skills, the values, that you can take with you anywhere, no matter what your job title was? Forget vice president, forget lead engineer. Strip all that away. What's left? Are you a builder at your core? A problem solver? A mentor? A creator? This audit is about getting to the heart of what you actually enjoy using and the values you want to live by.
Next up, pillar 2, micro-mission batching. This is your secret weapon against that purpose inertia we talked about. Look, instead of feeling all this pressure to figure out your grand purpose for the next 30 years, just don't. Instead, you engage in short 90-day projects, little missions. It could be anything: learning a new skill, organizing a community garden, mentoring someone starting out, writing down your family history. These micro missions give you structure, they give you that feeling of achievement, and, this is key, they build momentum. They get that engine of purpose started again, one small win at a time.
And that brings us to our third and final pillar, the generativity map. Psychologists talk about this key stage of life called generativity. It's this deep human need we have to guide the next generation, to pass on what we know. But here's the thing, this isn't about just sitting around waiting for someone to ask for your advice. No, this is about being proactive. It's about intentionally mapping out where your unique wisdom and experience are needed most. The question shifts from, am I still useful, to where is my wisdom most needed right now?
Okay, section 4, the blueprint. We've got the protocol, we understand the theory, but how do we actually do it? This is where the rubber meets the road. We're gonna go over 4 concrete behaviors you can start doing, like today, to shift your whole identity into being what we call a contribution architect.
So here are the 4 key shifts that really bring that legacy design protocol to life. First, we'll talk about adopting a title-free self-description. Then, practicing something called generativity outreach. After that, defining a 90-day challenge for yourself. And finally, implementing a daily habit called the meaning log.
Let's zoom in on that first one, because it is so powerful. The old way of describing yourself is rooted in the past tense. I was a vice president of marketing. It's a noun. But the new, title-free way, it uses active verbs in the present tense. I am a builder of teams. I am a connector of ideas. And listen, this is not just playing with words. This is a complete cognitive rewiring. It anchors your identity in what you can do right now, not in a status that's in the past.
So, what about the other 3? They're just as practical. Generativity outreach is simple. Just find one person or one group that could use your expertise and offer them a one-time wisdom transfer session. Easy. Your 90-day challenge is just picking one of those micro missions we talked about and giving it the same focus you'd give a big project at work. And the meaning log, that's a daily habit. Super simple. At the end of every day, just write down one single moment where you felt useful. That's it. This literally trains your brain to start noticing and valuing these new kinds of contribution. And that brings us to our last section, the transformation. It is so important to reframe this whole journey. This isn't about trying to get back something you lost. Not at all. This is a powerful evolution into a new, and I would argue, more important role. You're moving from being a passenger, just drifting along, to becoming the sage architect of your own meaning and your own legacy.
If you take one message away from this, let it be this one. You are not done. You are not on the sidelines. You are transitioning to a higher, more refined form of influence. Think about it. Before, maybe your biggest tool was your job title or your budget. But now your primary tools are your wisdom and your experience. And those are infinitely more valuable. And guess what? No one can ever take those away from you.
And that's really the wisdom for the long game, isn't it? Recognizing this simple truth. An instrumental role, a job, a title, that's all temporary. It can go away. But an intrinsic purpose, one that's built on your core values and your genuine desire to contribute, that is 100% yours. It creates a foundation for your life that is so much more stable, so much more resilient, and at the end of the day, so much more fulfilling. So we've covered the why, the what, and the how. We've done the learning. Now it's time to move from understanding to doing. It's time for your first mission. If we were to boil this all down to one single lesson, it would be this. Purpose doesn't just magically reappear when your old job goes away. It has to be intentionally, deliberately re-anchored. Understanding the problem is huge. That's the first step. But the solution? The solution is always, always action.
So, with that in mind, here is your mission. I want you to think back over your career. What was one core value you really leaned on? Was it creativity, mentorship, maybe strategic planning, or precision? Pick one, just one. Now, here's the real question. How can you express that exact same value in one small way in your community this week? This isn't just a hypothetical question. This is your first step. This is how you start to re-engage that engine.